Welcome to The Sound, KQAL FM's weekly behind-the-scenes look at Midwestern-made music. From writing and recording to distribution and promotion, The Sound is your source for new releases and exclusive interviews from Midwestern artists. Support for The Sound is made possible by a grant from the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund. Rolling. Tonight on The Sound, we check out the latest release from Bad Acid Cult. I sat down with Jason Robertson, the creative force behind Bad Acid Cult, to talk about electronic music and his new double album release, Ryukenden Hikiari and Ryukenden Kage. Inspired by the music in the NES video games Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2, this release has special meaning to Robertson, and we dive into the themes of friendship, loss, and paying it forward. I'm Bill Stoneberg. Stick around for Bad Acid Cult tonight on The Sound. That was Riverbanks from Bad Acid Cult, and I have Jason Robertson from Bad Acid Cult in the studio with me today. Hey, Jason, how's it going?
It is going fantastic, Bill. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, for sure, and welcome to Minnesota. You recently moved here from across the river, right?
Yeah, I've betrayed the great state of Wisconsin, and which was my ancestral home for the majority of my life, and now I've been living on the Mirrorverse version.
The Mirrorverse, yeah, exactly. exactly.
Everything is backwards here. I swear to God.
It is. The toilets, the water goes the opposite direction. I always refer to Wisconsin as the homeland.
Pretty much. Well, I lived in La Crosse, Wisconsin for 18 years, and I was so used to the north side and the south side.
Right.
Especially since we have the other side of the river on there, and it goes north to south on that side. So moving up here, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to the north side of town. And people are like, "Oh, you mean the west side?"
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, "Oh, that's right. The river is not a perfectly straight line."
Right. Runs east and west. I had a huge argument with my girlfriend in high school about that. I was like, well, the river right there runs east and west, though. And she's like, no, the river goes south. And I'm like, well, generally, but right there, it's running east and west. And she could not wrap her head around that. I was like, okay.
And we're like, let me take the map
cool.
out. And you see how
You're
it
cute.
curves here a little bit?
Right.
Yeah, it's not a straight line, north to south. True
Fun
north or
stuff,
south,
though.
for that matter, yeah.
Right. So I'm glad we got that figured out. Everyone, tune in next week. We'll be here again talking about the direction of the river. No.
In case you wanted to know, it's moved 2 degrees due to erosion. It is a whole thing now.
Right. But no, seriously, we are here to talk about music, talk about Bad Acid Cult. That last tune, Riverbanks, you've got some visuals online. Some of the stuff is on YouTube. The visual is kind of like a shot from the bluffs of the river.
Yeah.
Is that like a new tune that you wrote after moving here, or is it?
Yeah. I was actually kind of inspired by running around that beautiful graveyard you guys have.
Oh, yeah.
I forget the name of it, like Woodlawn or something.
Woodlawn, Woodlawn Cemetery. Yeah.
We climbed to the top of that and then just kind of see over the city, and I was like, oh, this is a really beautiful view. And then I found a picture that my dad took. He sells Riverview real estate and stuff, and it's just more of a kind of a love letter to the upper Midwest, Mississippi River Valley,
Cool.
But in instrumental form.
Right.
Just because, I always intended maybe eventually to have vocals with some of the tracks that I've done, but I've never been comfortable enough to figure out what my vocal styling would be for it.
Okay.
I've done vocals on a number of different projects. But I also kind of like the idea of just kind of keeping an instrumental for the majority of it and just let the music do the talking. I am releasing 2 albums on April 22nd, one of which features the first time I've ever had a hip-hop artist do lyrics and stuff for it. So I think we're going to be playing.
Is that the Emperor track?
Yeah, it is.
Cool.
We're going to play that next.
Right. Yeah.
I'll talk a little bit about that. So that was kind of interesting how that kind of came about. Originally, this song was going to be an instrumental, like the 98% of the stuff that I've done, except for one other collaboration that I did with another DJ named Murder Queen. She provided vocals for that, so that was pretty cool. But this one, I went to I played a gig at a party, and this cat named Sam, who performs as Ethotype, he was doing a set, and he really kind of reminded me of the kind of hip hop that I'm into, like Rhyme Sayers, Anticon, Doomtree, that kind of stuff, and like existential kind of lyricist, but fast rapping. And I was like, oh man, I want to work with this guy. And he heard my stuff, because I was like one of the opening acts, and we kind of jammed. And I was like, yeah, we should work on a track. I'm like, well, I got an album coming out, and I have this one track that it's a little bit too slow, I think, to put as that I could put in my set that I was performing. I was like, let me send it to you if you want to, put some rhymes on it. So he ended up, so the double album is music inspired by and remixed from the first 2 Ninja Gaiden games for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Right. It's also kind of a new thing for me too, is to do long form remixing, because mostly I write my own stuff top to bottom.
Right.
So, but I was like, and the story of this, why I decided to remix the first 2 Ninja Gaiden games, is like when I was, like 13, I met one of my best friends and we bonded over the Ninja Gaiden games, like during not recess, PE class. I was talking about video games with my buddy Rob, and who would be my buddy Rob, and I was talking about how I had a hard time beating one of the level bosses, and he was like, "Oh, I'll come over to your house. We'll beat it together." And then we ended up beating those 2 games, and then becoming like best friends, and then in middle school, high school, and then like roommates in college, and then he passed away from cancer when we were at the tender age of 25. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer. And I was playing another game on Xbox that kind of reminded me of the Ninja Gaiden games this winter. And usually in the wintertime, that's when I like to go into creative mode, because there's nothing else really to do. So my mind just starts spitting out stuff. So I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to remix one of the Ninja Gaiden games and I put that out as a single or something like that. And then I'm like, wow, that one was pretty fun and easy to do. Let me try this one. And then little did I know that I remixed an entire game's worth of music. Cool. And then I was like, well, maybe as a bonus, or I'll do one from Ninja Gaiden 2, and then that kind of snowballed as well. And I was like, oh man, I got 2 full albums. But I was also like, well, this is kind of based on other people's work, so I don't want to sell it. Then I also got the inspiration that, put it out as a tribute album, free download for both albums. It's more like a double album because it's like one long piece. Right. And then if people wish to, and I'm not going to say you have to or not, make a donation to any kind of like cancer research type stuff, since it's kind of done. I'm releasing it on my buddy's birthday too, so that's like April 22nd is his birthday. Right. So it's kind of like a postmortem birthday part. But anyways, that's a long way into leading into talking to Sam about this track Emperor. And I told him the whole story that I just told you, and he's like, "Oh man, that's awesome." It's like, I think I'm gonna kind of base the lyrics on the entirety of Ninja Gaiden 2. So. Which this track that we're about to play is from. It's like from one of the cutscenes in the video game, and he sent me the track and with his vocals on top, and it just blew me away. So that's the story behind the song.
Very cool. And then do you have a link to like any specific organizations people can donate to for cancer research? Or
well, I've been saying
just kind of choose your own? Or?
Well, cancer.org, that leads to the American Cancer Society. That's usually like the one that's easy for people to remember. Right. Although I'm also told that there's other cancer research centers or outreach or various other how do you say, like assistance programs that are probably better than the American Cancer Society, but that was just kind of what I had off the top of my head. Yeah. So I perhaps on the day of the release, I'll probably release a few different links just to let people know what their options are if they wish to donate. Right. But yeah, nice. It's just, I during this whole pandemic thing and just in general, in the last few years, I've just been feeling like there's not enough goodwill in the world. Yeah. And it's like, if I can use this as a small way to kind of, pay it forward and just, also I've got friends and family who are still fighting these fights, so anything that can help them keep going on, that's a big thing for me. So
yeah, I think anyone who isn't touched by that already is lucky, because it's so prominent. So prominent. Well, let's hear the track. This is we are talking to Bad Acid Cult. Well, we're talking to Jason Robertson, who basically is Bad Acid Cult.
Pretty much, yeah.
Bass added cult.
Bass added cult.
Right.
We add bass to all the cults.
Right.
Like you got a cult, you need some bass, we'll hook you up.
The Bassomatic.
Bassomatic. Slices, dices.
Right. But yeah, we're here with Jason Robertson, Bad Acid Cult. This is the track Emperor. Right, you're listening to it on the Sound right here on 89.5 KQAL.
Chaos reigns, dragon fangs, parasitic blade with a taste for pain. When the dark emits, will the light permit past this plane of existence to flip the script? One man clamped through the heat of the sand. Peace in the land, left to speak where he stands. Left with no other, the love is devoid. The demons employ seem to creep up behind. Decides to reap with the ego divides. He rides in the dust, must be something inside. Then he realizes the time is divine as the signs point to violence and evil embodiments. Encountered by tribesmen of chaos, Emperor sent him to find him a payoff. Immortal balance, he quickly diminishes threats from a distance with trust in the name of his father and the ones he lost along the path to salvation for those he loved. Stopped in his tracks by the one he saw. Shuddered an ominous energy menacing without a trace of thought. Whoa.
Led astray by those in pain, for those who fire, keeping darknesses at bay, dragging fingers as they lie. Led astray by those in pain, for those who fire, keeping darknesses at bay, dragging fingers as they lie.
Chaos reigns, dragon fangs, parasitic blade with a taste for pain. When the dark emits, will the light permit past this plane of existence to flip the script? One last stand at the mouth of the demon, the labyrinth inside full of death and dilemma. Searching for anything destined to cleansing the altar of hell with the quest for his maiden. All of a sudden the air turned to ice, chills down his neck as he noticed the voice. Been here before in a state of amnesia as vertigo grips on his being with a vice. Well, empowered by the sight of the seance, takes a deep breath and plummets into the face of visions of past. He remembers the path as he slashes and stabs at the heart of the shadow. Incision to the gates of dark above the bastard. He mastered the ways of love, stopped in his tracks as demonic blood trickled into the blade, evasively replacing what he came to stop. Whoa.
That was Emperor. That's from the album Ryukenden Kage. That's part of the double album released by Bad Acid Cult. And in the studio today, we have Jason from Bad Acid Cult. Jason, so you were just telling us a little bit about the background of that song, the inspiration behind the double albums, based off of the game, the NES game, Ninja Gaiden.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. So this is the first time you've remixed basically other like stuff that you didn't build from the ground up, you know?
Yeah.
How did that work? Like technically, like what did you have to do? Like you had mentioned to me before that some of these, the initial tracks and beats are only like 30 seconds long, you know?
Yep.
Like, so how do you expand that into a full, like, you know, 5-minute tune? You know?
Well, basically, I found the original MIDI files and then just kind of deconstructed them just to see which parts are what. Be like, okay, this sounds like a bass, this is drums, you know. And then I would listen to the original soundtrack at its original BPMs and volumes and whatnot, and just see how it was kind of mixed together originally,
Right.
and then kind of cross-reference with what I had deconstructed and be like, okay, that's good. I like this synth part. I'm gonna pump this up a little bit more. The bass line here is all right, but I'm gonna kind of change it. You know, it was a lot of switching of plugins and patches, and then changing BPMs and then adding a bunch of other stuff too, just to kind of make it something a little bit more unique. I mean, it was a whole lot of fun, and it was a lot easier to do than just to straight up write stuff.
Right.
Because it's all there. I understand there's a lot of
Right,
people
or a
out there
bassist.
who do remixes exclusively because you know, you can basically just. Yeah, it's basically like going into a room that already has furniture in it and be like, I'm going to move this over there just because this chair is a little bit too close to the window. I'm getting glare from the TV.
Right. You know, there's a skeleton there already, right? You know?
Yeah. But yeah, like as a person who writes stuff from scratch on a regular basis, like, you know, you know, there's a lot of times where when I start writing a song, I'll come up with a beat, and then usually it's drums, then bass, because then I'll have a beat to kind of you know, keep me semi in time.
Right.
That's the joys of working electronically, because and writing in MIDI is that if I screw up on hitting a note just right, I don't have to go back in and, you know, play the whole phrase over again. I can just go in and just
move it.
Yeah, physically move the note. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, this is so easy. Yeah. And at first I was like, you know, dogging on myself for, you know, using that as my writing process. But at the same time, I was like, well, not to compare myself to Mozart, but dude wasn't on there with a violin all the time practicing it over. He's writing all that stuff down on a piece of paper, and sounding it out in his head or on a piano.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sure there was been many times where he'd be like, yeah, no, that note, that needs to go back just one little bit, one count, kind of.
So really, that's all he had to do too, is just move the note on the paper, on the staff
pretty
paper,
much, yeah.
So
yeah, and there's a lot of artists that I've admired over the years. Like Mozart's one of them, like Trent Reznor, like the people that can, like if you listen to their music and kind of try to deconstruct it with your ear, you can hear that a lot of the parts that they have that form these like rich tapestries are just simple little like 3-note structures. Be like do do do. And they just kind of repeat on the background, moving up and down octaves and stuff. And then I kind of learned how to do that, myself, and just kind of like build from something really simple and then kind of build it into something quite elaborate and a richer tapestry at the end of it, which, it kind of, I don't know. That was a little tip that was brought to me by one of my friends who was visiting from Belgium, and who was also an electronic music producer. And I was just starting out, like, because I've been doing this for 10 years, I want to say. And starting out, I sang in hardcore punk bands and rock and roll and heavy metal and that stuff. So I was a decent vocalist on for those specific types of genres, but I've always been into like industrial and techno and hip hop and stuff, but I never knew the process, It was also kind of the reason why I joined, rock and roll bands, just to kind of demystify a lot of the stuff that I, as a listener, be like, what is that sound? How do they make that sound?
How are they making that?
Yeah. I wanted to know how the sausage was made. And then when I learned how to make the sausage, I'm like, I want to try making some of this sausage. And then I hand the sausage off to other people who make sausage, and they're good at it, and they'll be like, needs more time.
Right.
A little basil over here, little bass.
Totally.
But yeah, he basically told me that start small and build, and then just
Yeah. It's kind of like you have a simple theme, and you just repeat that theme in different ways, different variations, and pretty soon you've got something that's more complex. You know?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. I love it. Well, let's get back into some tunes. So we're gonna play some more off of the double album here.
Okay.
Next up we have Shinobi Streets. It's Act 1, Shinobi Streets. So I think you were telling me a little bit before about how the tracks are named and listed. It goes kind of in chronological order as you go through the game. Is that the idea?
Yeah. Like on the final release, I pretty much the labels that I gave you were kind of like to kind of keep the order in my head of how the songs would appear in the game. This particular track that's coming up, I believe this is the music from the very first stage of the first Ninja Gaiden game that ever appeared on the Nintendo Entertainment System. So it's basically, if you want to have a mental picture of your head, picture a ninja running through the streets of Tokyo or something, basically fighting monsters and demons or whatever.
In that pixelated form.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's get to it. Let's hear it. This is Act 1, Shinobi Streets. This is from Bad Acid Cult, who we are speaking to in the studio today. Check it out, Shinobi Streets, right here on the Sound on 89.5 KQAL. That was Shinobi Streets from Bad Acid Cult. That's from the double album called Ryukenden. I'm going to see if I can pronounce the subtitles here for the album 1 and 2. It's Hikiari. I can't. Hikari and Kage.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So that's album 1 and 2.
Or Cage if you want to be that way.
Cage if you want to be that way.
Rage
Sure,
Cage,
sure.
baby.
Right. But so you were talking a little bit about your background, coming from kind of hard rock and punk and stuff like that, being a vocalist, and then learning more about electronic music and how that's put together. Like you talked about how you can just move a note and things like that, and I've often been curious about how the sausage is made, like,
Yeah.
for dance floor music, stuff like that,
right.
as well. I always thought it would be amazing, playing in bands and stuff. You're up on stage and you can interact with the crowd that way and stuff. But I always thought it would be really fascinating to like create something and then have it played and be able to sit back and watch the reaction and watch how people interact with that music. Can you get that experience when you perform live? Because you're busy up there too.
Yeah, that's the problem when I'm doing most of the stuff on my own, unless I have somebody come up and fill in on certain parts. But generally, like the way I work, it's pretty one man band kind of thing, and
So
it's not
kind of intense up there. For
it's not terribly exciting to watch either. Like I mean, I used to be in a high energy rock and roll band where I was like running across the stage doing
Right.
power slides and getting in people's faces. The band was the show, where this is more like ignore the man behind the curtain, just get out there and dance,
Shake your booty and
I'm just some
Feel
dude twiddling knobs and playing with a synthesizer. It's not exactly rocket science. There would be a lot of times where like one of the first few gigs that I played, I would make specifically like video wall animations and stuff, just so people had something to look at.
Like that.
I mean, in the olden days, like when raves first came around, I mean, you didn't have that. You maybe had light lasers and fog, and
Right.
like, people were there to basically dance, and they didn't care who was in front. When the EDM came around, and like, I was like, oh, we got to watch the guy, wave his
right.
hands behind the two decks.
Or you have some dudes in helmets or a mouse head or something, right?
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Whereas, I mean, I thought about doing something like that, but I'm also I don't know if I can really pull it off anymore. Like, or if people would care,
Right.
Because again, when I perform live, I'd rather have people listen to the tunes, because like my setup live is like I bring like a MIDI controller, and since I have a crappy back that I've basically thrown out at the age of 25, carrying a lot of gear is a real pain. Also, being in multiple
and just not
bands.
desirable
Oh
anymore.
no, yeah,
and
and setup too. To heck
yeah.
with that. So
Yeah.
I've learned to work quite quickly. Like the majority of my synths are all soft synths that I can kind of toggle between on my laptop. Again, another reason why my live shows are not exactly exciting to watch. But I the last few shows I've actually had more people dancing than watching, so that's cool.
Nice, yeah.
Because
yeah.
like and making sure that everything triggers at the right time, and I play the certain parts that I want to play out live. Like there's certain like little lead parts that I like to play just because they're really fun.
Yeah.
And then, but there's some parts that it would be physically impossible for me to do all of them.
Right.
Because I mean, we're talking about like 40, like 30 to 40 different, separate instrumentations that are going on at the same time.
And you have to, if you were to play some of that live, that you still have to keep your head in the game to cue things.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous, but it's starting to get some popularity. So
right.
I'm pretty.
Well, and
excited
it
for
almost seems to me that the way people connect to the music is more of a feeling it in your body physically and moving. You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of a different ball game, and it's kind of cool. And,
Yeah. Well, and you were kind of asking like how I transitioned from being in like more analog style bands to being electronic. Being when I was in high school, I was like one of those like the capybara of like seeing kids, where I was more like my main type was heavy metal and industrial, but
Right.
like I also hung out with the kids who were into hip hop and rap and I would go to like goth industrial shows and listen to punk stuff. I mean, I was kind of all over the spectrum.
Right.
And then when I got out of high school and I joined my first hardcore punk band, that was pretty fun. And then, but I didn't really get a chance to start doing. I really had a deep love for industrial and techno music. Like as the ripe age of 18. I was going to goth industrial shows and going to Chicago for warehouse raves and stuff.
Right.
And just because I love the renegade aspect of just be like, we don't need a club.
Right.
We're just going to go to an
gonna
abandoned
set up
warehouse and we're just going to throw a rager for like 8 hours and then
Right.
pack up and
get out.
get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
So that was always like super fascinating to me. And then like hearing some tunes that I've never heard before and be like, oh man, and I'd be like, oh, I love this. And I'm like,
Totally.
it sounds so alien. And it wasn't until like me and Benny Sweat of the Sweat Boys, we had a project where we pretended that we were German nihilists and just played noise music.
Right.
Yeah, which was quite funny.
Was that ever released? Because I seem to remember you guys talking about that, but I don't know if I actually heard it.
Well, I think we had a few bootleg cassettes.
Yeah.
as the Scheisse. It was what we were called, but then we found out there was an actual band called Scheisse. So then we changed our
there
name
is.
to Scheisse UK.
Oh,
So it's funny.
nice.
So funny, yeah. The funny thing was that like, and I believe you had an interview with Steve Harm. What if his quote about the thing that me and Benny did? It was called a noiseful cacophony of talentless jerks. This is what he called us.
Nice.
But it's funny how just banging on synthesizers and drum machines and stuff and just making squelchy, squealy noises actually leads us to learn our instruments more.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. There's a lot of kids out there who come to me and are like, oh, I'd love to do this, but I really suck. I'm like, yeah, the quote Adventure Time, the first part of being good at something is sucking at it.
Sucking at it,
Like,
yeah.
Just do it. Like,
Totally.
You don't be, and the key is to not get embarrassed with yourself, but kind of be embarrassed of yourself to be like, I want you to be better.
So you can get better. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have the drive and the desire to be better, but
Also not rest on your laurels, or otherwise people
Right,
will think
right.
like, oh, that guy's just a narcissist.
just don't be afraid to fail because
Yeah.
you're gonna. I mean, it's how we learn, right?
Yeah, and you can always be better. I mean, geez, there's musicians out there who've been doing this since birth, and they're still working on their craft. So,
Right.
yeah, don't expect to hit the ground running. But if you do, for some weird reason, also don't let that go to your head.
Roll with it. Don't let it go to your head, and keep exploring and learning. Really.
Yep.
So, let's explore and learn a little more about this album, man. Let's see. Next up, we got the Tower of Laja.
Yep.
So this is Act 3, Scene 2 in the game chronology, something like that.
Chronological order.
Yes, that exactly. So let's check it out, and we'll be back with more talk with Jason from Bad Acid Cult. This track is called "The Tower of Laja." You're listening to it on the Sound on 89.5 KQAL. That was The Tower of Laja. That is from Bad Acid Cult. That's from their double album that's coming out, based on the Nintendo Entertainment System game Ninja Gaiden, otherwise known as Ryukenden in Japan. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Cool. I can pronounce some things. So we have Jason from Bad Acid Cult in the studio with us today. Let's see. We've talked about playing live, the transition from like analog rock band into electronic music and MIDI. I've got a question for you about that, because like I've tried a few kind of MIDI things, and oh my God, I just end up pulling my hair out and throwing shit at the wall. Like, it's so frustrating for me, and I don't know why. It's just like I can't get it to sound not stiff.
Right.
How do you get it? I listen to your tracks and it sounds natural. It doesn't sound like mine. It sounded all herky jerky when I tried to do stuff. Like how do you do that?
Well,
is there a magic potion or something like pixie dust? I don't know.
The funny thing is for me is a lot of sweetening of stuff. Like I'll play a piece and then it'll be like, well, that sounds a little like too abrupt, so
right.
Like if I filter it through using like little reverb or just kind of like, and then kind of overdub stuff, and then choosing different patches and plugins to kind of there's a lot of menu cycling, I'll say that much.
Yeah.
I'll be like, I'll set a phrase on repeat and just sit there for, a good like 2 or 3 hours just going through patches and be like, yeah. Well, that was good. No. And then, I mean, because like the amount of different like synthesizers that I have on my computer are ridiculous, and I keep getting more because I'm like, ooh, that's a neat plugin.
Right.
I gotta download that one, and then and then the cycle continues, because then when I find an actual like synthesizer sound that I need or like, I'm like, what would it sound like with distortion? What would it sound like with reverb? What if I put a phaser on there? What if I put a comb filter on it? Right. Like and like, so I can sit there on one synth part for like 2 days,
at least, right?
Yeah. And then what is always fun is then when you turn on all the other tracks and be like, okay, let's hear it with the bass and the drums, and you're like, oh God, it sounds like crap. Oh, I just wasted 2 hours. And then you like strip off all the stuff that you just put on it and be like, I think it'll be good with just a little bit of reverb.
But that goes back to what we were talking about before, like, expect to fail and expect things to, work or not work, but there's two choices there: work or not work. Sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes you got to keep going.
Yeah, and also get a few different opinions too, because after many years of being in live rock and roll and heavy metal bands, like my ears, they're the level of registry has definitely gone down. Like I always defer to Benny Sweat on a lot of my mixes and be like, hey, give this a listen to, what needs to go up, what needs to go down, what hurts you, sonically, and what makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And also I have this thing where and I know a lot of other musicians do this too, where I'll listen to a track that I just did on like multiple different devices, like I'll listen to it on a set of really crappy computer speakers, and then like on a phone, and then on through my entertainment system, and then the car test is the big one.
The car car
like,
stereo.
Does it bump in my car? There was a couple tracks on this new album where I don't have a subwoofer in my studio setup, because I also I produce this in my apartment.
Right, so you can't get too loud. Probably, right?
Yeah, and I do
especially your working hours are probably
Yeah.
like all hours of the night and day, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And like quiet time at my apartment's like 10 o'clock. Before moving up to Winona, I had lived in 2 houses, so it didn't really matter.
Right.
I could go off until the late hours. Of course, within reason, because there is still technically neighbors.
Yeah.
But now that I've been producing mostly through my headsets, you really don't hear some of the. I need to get a good set of studio headphones, to be honest, because I've been working with a set of Bose.
You know what I found that I really love? They're, in fact, in the cabinet behind you, I've got some. They're made by Vic Firth.
Ooh.
They're for drummers.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, you cannot hear anything in the room.
Wow.
And that sound that's going in your ears, it's silent in the room. Like,
oh, wow.
It does not escape those headphones. Like,
nice.
They're really cool, and they're cheap. They're like $75 or something. Yeah. And they're
deal.
just phenomenal, like, studio headphones because they don't make any sound. The mic is not going to pick up the headphones.
That's amazing.
And, I just absolutely love them. I got them for live gigs here because, you're recording a live band and it's loud in there. You can't hear through, like the Sonys that we're wearing. They're great headphones for the studio, but in a live situation, they're useless. So yeah, just a little. It's not really a plug, but I mean it's just cheap gear that works. So.
Yeah, well, I'm all for the cheap gear that works.
Exactly.
There's a lot of people who be like, "Well, you need to get the $3,000 Sennheisers."
Right.
Like, no, you don't really. There's always another option that it works as good. That's going to be less money. I mean, granted, there is some companies that they're reason why they're that high of quality, but also what is the application, you know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There's so many factors. Like, where now that you're producing with headphones, has that changed? Like, say, spending 2 days on a synth part, with different filters and plugins, has that changed the way you work that way? Like, is it quicker? Or maybe you hear more, so you're like 3 days on the part instead of 2? Or,
well, I generally always start working with headphones on specifically.
Okay.
And then once I get to a part where I'm like, okay, I think I've gotten, because if I feel like with my headphones on, I'm a little bit more surgical on that stuff, where I can pick things up a little bit better. But then hearing the mix coming through speakers, then there's some things that were clear in the mix that kind of get pushed back,
Okay, right.
So we're like, oh god, that doesn't sound nearly as good through these speakers. But then I also have to kind of realize too what format they're coming through, because like on if I stream a track from my computer onto like say my Apple TV, Apple TV has this thing where it like equalizes the loud and the soft,
right?
Because there's really a lot of times where I'd be watching movies and like the dialogue's really quiet.
Yeah,
But the accent is huge, and it's like, because I'm constantly flipping the volume up and down, but having that equalize loud noises kind of like keeps it
helps with
consistent.
that,
Yeah. I don't have to worry about like freaking out the neighbors that way.
Right.
And so a lot of times where I'll listen to that and just see what it does to the music, and it does kind of flatten it quite a bit.
Right.
But that's also a good avenue to just see how it kind of, what it will do to the mix. And like I was gonna say, I brought the new album and I took it on a road trip and I listened to it through my car speakers. And there's some tracks where like I didn't realize how beautifully deep the bass was.
Nice.
I mean, it was just like, I felt like my heart was starting to match the beat. It's like,
Oh, cool. Right.
and I was like, I could kind of feel it running through my bones. And I don't even have a subwoofer in my car, so I was like, okay, this sounds pretty
That's gonna
good.
do the trick. Right?
Yeah. The bass heads out there will approve.
Right.
I'll
Cool.
be making sweet love to the speakers when it comes out of it.
Yeah. My neighbor will be out there shaking his fist at people driving by, Turn that down.
You're rattling the fine china.
Right. Oh, well, we're in the studio today with Jason from Bad Acid Cult. We're playing some tracks off his new double album that's going to come out. This next one, I don't know if it's on the double album. Sea of Japan. Is that one an older track?
That's an older track, yeah.
Okay.
It has not been officially released on any albums so far. I just put it out on YouTube. Like as of late, a lot of my work, I kind of put it out on YouTube for the simple fact that they don't have upload limits.
Okay, sure.
I was using SoundCloud for a long time, but you can only upload so much before they want you to have a pro account, and then the pro account gets billed, monthly, or however. And I wasn't really seeing a lot of good results. And then when you went off of a pro account, all the stuff that you've uploaded gets, wiped away, which sucks.
Yeah.
So I was like, And like, I kind of want to save my Bandcamp page as where I put out like actual albums.
Okay.
So like most of my single work, which will eventually get collected into an album, I've been putting out via YouTube. So
Cool.
Yeah, and that's actually via my personal YouTube channel. So it's
okay.
like Jason J. Robertson or something like that.
Okay. Cool.
Or just, if you just type in Badass Occult, you should be
I
able to
found
find
it right
stuff.
away on YouTube doing that.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
no, like and subscribe, that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, comment if you want to, I feel like that's the
Hit the
buzzword.
comment button below.
Follow, like, and subscribe, and I'll make sure that this is my oath as a YouTuber is that I will never go on and waste your time by saying, hey, man, sorry it's been a long time since I've uploaded, but, like, I had all this personal stuff going on in my life, blah, 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 20 minutes of exposition later. Okay, so let's get into the tutorial, guys.
Right, right. It's like, dude, I just Googled this 10 minutes ago. I didn't even know you existed. I don't care that you were gone for 3 months. Like, I just want to know how to hook up this outlet.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, Sea of Japan. Now that we've completely dovetailed from what we were actually talking about.
Right.
Yeah, like this one was, I don't know how I found a Kodo drum plugin, and that just sounded really like just vibrant,
Yeah, that's what drew me into this track.
Yeah, it's like that big booming bass, and like I gave a copy of this track to one of my buddies who was going to like a 3-day festival. And I guess that was like it became like their end of the night track where they're like kind of winding down. It's more like, so it was, having a lot of different influences, like, being a fan of industrial and hip hop and trip hop and all this stuff kind of comes out in my work, because I have a hard time really like, pigeonholing where my stuff sits on a genre. You want
to keep it open, right? So you can do whatever you want, really.
Oh, you hear that from every single band. They'll be like, well, we don't really like to use labels. Like our stuff kind of transcends labels. Like,
and then it's like every song's exactly the same. They're kind of AC/DC that way.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah, like, AC/DC labeled or genre defying right there.
It's my buddy Rick Paw said, it's all rock and roll to me, man.
Nice.
It's like it's all electronic music to me.
Oh, I love Rick.
Yeah. Like if you ever want a university level dissertation on the genre of rock and roll, you talk to that man.
Yeah.
He will teach you things.
Definitely.
Yes.
Well, let's get into the track. This is Sea of Japan from Badass Occult. We're talking to Jason from Badass Occult today in the studio. Here it is. Check it out. This is Sea of Japan right here on the Sound on 89.5 KQAL. That was Sea of Japan from Bad Acid Cult, and we have Jason from Bad Acid Cult in the studio with us today, talking about a double release that he's got based on the Nintendo Entertainment System game Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2. So there's 2 albums kind of matching that. So Jason, you said that those will be available via like YouTube mostly, right?
Well, the double album will be on Bandcamp.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it'll say pay what you want, but don't pay me anything. I don't want a single cent for either of these.
Right.
These are, I basically did these as a kind of a tribute to my buddy who passed away from cancer. Mm-hmm. And these games were like really big for us, back in the day. That's how we became homies.
Right.
And I just kind of wanted to do this for fun. And it turned out so good that I was like, well, I want to release these.
Right.
But also, since they're all remixes too, I didn't want it, or reimaginings.
Right. Yeah.
They were, just because if you heard the original tracks from the video game, they're 8-bit sound,
right.
Kind of chiptune. Where this are a little bit more fuller, and I've used some more acoustic-y kind of sounding instrumentation in terms of like drums and. Although the majority of it is like electronic music, but it's more contemporary stuff, sounds that I kind of went with. So yeah, those will be released on Bandcamp on the 22nd of April. Both free albums, and if you feel the need to make any kind of financial contribution, if you feel guilty, be like, oh, I just downloaded 2.5 hours worth of free music, I feel bad, if you want to make a contribution to a cancer research foundation, sort of like the American Cancer Society or anything like that, that would be cool. If you wanted to make a donation in the name of Robert Neville Neal, which was my buddy's name. I'll put all that information on the album description when it gets released. So
cool.
That would be greatly appreciated, especially because I think we all have had, in one form or another, our friends or family have been affected by this kind of stuff, and anything we can do to kind of further the research to get people healthy and safe as quickly as possible in the future would be most appreciated.
Right, totally. Well, I think it's a beautiful tribute. I think it's a super cool, as you said, reimagining. I like that term. That really fits, and it just, really cool. Before we get into the last track here, how can fans find out about live shows? Because you've had quite a year, it sounds like.
Yeah. Generally, if you go to Facebook and look up Bad Acid Cult, I think it's like facebook.com/Bad Acid Cult.
Okay.
And then I don't think I have a Instagram presence or a Twitter presence yet, but at the time of this recording, and I'm now thinking about it, and we'll probably do it. Right. Just because, not everybody has a Facebook account anymore. Yeah. And like Instagram's kind of more taken over. I know Twitter's a wasteland in my opinion, but but yeah, generally I announce stuff via my Facebook page,
cool.
in terms of performances and stuff.
Right.
Now that the world's opening back up, I'm hopefully going to be playing some venues. If so, there's a little hint out there, all you people are looking to book electronic artists, you need to get a hold of me. JasonJRobertson@gmail.com. Give me a shout there, buddy. And so I got some slots open to play if anybody needs, a good 45 minutes to an hour of material. I can provide it.
Awesome.
But yeah, Facebook, Bad Acid Cult.
All right, cool.
That's my main avenue of communication right now.
Excellent. Well, look it up. Facebook, Bad Acid Cult. Check out Bandcamp. Did you say April 22nd?
April 22nd.
Okay, excellent. Yep. So it's available now.
Okay.
We're pre-recording this, folks, so we just figured out what day it is.
We are manipulating space-time as it is, so it just came out. So hopefully all the things I was talking about that I was thinking about doing have happened already. If not, hey, I'm only human. I'm one guy.
Right. Or we can always go back and change it.
That's
right?
true.
I mean, that's the beauty of time travel.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a little known fact that we in the entertainment industry do control space and time.
Yeah, we totally do. I mean, we're broadcasting this from the past.
Yeah.
And you're hearing it in what is the future to us.
Yeah.
And from your perspective, we're in the past. So, I mean, yeah, it's complex. There's a lot of quads per channel. I don't think you guys need to worry about that there.
There's a lot of quantum physics involved.
Yeah.
It's going to blow your mind. We'd rather not blow your mind today.
Yeah, because that it makes a mess. It makes a mess all over the floors and the walls and everything. Speaking of which, this next track, Dirty Floors.
Yep. We're going to close this one out with something a little hardcore. There's a movie from the 80s starring Weird Al Yankovic called UHF. And there's a character who you may recognize as a certain Kramer from Seinfeld. He played a janitor in that movie. And he had some of the greatest lines of all cinematic history. So I lifted a few of those to kind of talk about not having to settle for having dirty floors. You just clean that right up.
Right.
And if you can't take it anymore, just you run to that window and you say, I'm mad as heck. I mean, these floors are dirty as heck, and I'm not going to take it anymore.
All right. Well, let's check it out. This is it. This is Dirty Floors from Bad Acid Cult. Jason, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bill.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have you back when you release more stuff. Love it. Welcome to Minnesota.
Yeah, it's been nice. Minnesota nice so far.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, this is it. This is Dirty Floors from Bad Acid Cult. You're listening to it on The Sound right here on 89.5 KQAL.
My new mop. George, my friend, he gave me this mop. It's a pretty good mop. It's not as good as my first mop. I miss my first mop. But this is still a good mop. Sometimes you just have to take what life gives you. Because life is like a mop. And sometimes life gets full of dirt, crud, bugs, and hairballs and stuff. You gotta clean it out. You gotta put it in here and rinse it off and start all over again. And sometimes life sticks to the floor so bad. You know, a mop is not good enough. It's not good enough. You gotta get down there like with a toothbrush, you know, and you gotta really scrub. You gotta get it off. You gotta really try to get it off. But if that doesn't work, you can't give up. You gotta stand right up. You gotta run to a window and say, hey, these floors are dirty as hell, and I'm not gonna take it anymore.
Thanks again to Jason Robertson of Bad Acid Cult for joining us tonight on The Sound. The new double album and more can be found on Bandcamp.com. For more deep dives into local and regional albums, tune into The Sound every Wednesday night at 6 right here on 89.5 KQAL. I'm Bill Stoneberg, and we've just heard from Jason Robertson of Bad Acid Cult on The Sound. Thanks for listening to The Sound. The Sound is produced by KQAL FM on the campus of Winona State University. Visit us online at kqal.org. Theme music for The Sound provided by Mike Terrell of Fires of Denmark.